pardon the mess. There's a mess. But speaking of messes, you know the typical story in anime, right? The typical, oh, you have a guy, a shy girl, a wannabe pretending to be cool girl that's actually a nerd, and then the school president who happens to be very serious and diligent. And they play a game online, you know, and and that's it. The kind of isekai story of this little group of rascals going and playing their game online, surpassing missions, but also having an interaction outside of the game and making it more about like the the real life than the game. Well, we got to see that on Yamada-kun, Love 9000 or something. Good series, and it all developed. The relationship developed from from the actual game, and then they were meeting in real life, and they realized, oh, you're not a guy like your character online. You're actually a girl and everything, and it's cute, you know. It's a story that happens not necessarily like super often, but enough to be its own genre of anime. The in real life interaction with game interaction that develops into a relationship anime. We've seen it, we've known it, it happens. Cool. So one thing that I like whenever I start watching a new anime, it's usually the color palette. Like legit. If the color palette of the poster of the anime is appealing to me, I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm gonna give it a chance. And I usually give animes a chance like 3 episodes and then I drop it. And that was kind of the case with this fever dream. So I started watching, and you thought there is never a girl online. This is the story of Protakun, who is the guy that she is definitely in love with him, and in real life she's like this super shy type. They have the little guild with the serious one right here, the shy one, Protakun, and this other bitch who she joined last episode. I'm about to start watching episode 6. And you're probably wondering, why the hell am I doing a video about this thing? Now, the average Crunchyroll rating is 4.4. You might be thinking, well, that's kind of a good rating, right? Not really, because every single fucking anime on Crunchyroll has a 4.9 or 4.8 rating, because everyone that is watching that anime kind of likes it. So it's very rare, in my case at least, to see an anime that has a low rating. At least 4.4 is kind of the lowest I've seen it in a while. But here's the thing. Whenever I got to episode 3, I was about to drop it. And I was going to make a video about like, hey, don't watch this thing. It's just, why would you? You're probably going to be wasting your time. Because up to episode 3, and I'm just going to give like very brief spoilers. Very. So I'm not going to say anything that is going to necessarily affect the viewing experience. But you gotta understand that there's gonna be a couple of things that I will be touching on that might be spoilery territory. So up to episode 3, it was going on in the most of generic ways. You have the real life interaction of these people that got together through the power of the game, and they're like, oh, so you are this person and you're this person and you're this person, okay, cool. And they happen to be in the same school, and they're trying to like figure out their personalities. It was incredibly generic, very generic, and I wasn't necessarily like caring for any of it. Like legit, I was just it's fine. Like I was so ready to drop it. But something happened, and that something is called work. I was working at the same time. I'm watching it in dub because it felt so unimportant to literally watch it and pay attention to. So I was working. I'm editing this movie, and at the same time, like I was listening to this in the background, and it was just like, dude, this is generic. But I decided to work a little bit more. So episode 4 started to play. And that's when it happened. Episode 4 was the turning point in this shit. Because starting on episode 4 and episode 5, I started reading through the comments. And I'm glad that everyone agreed with me. This thing is cringe. Like, very, very, very cringe. And bad. It's not really good. But you can't stop watching it after episode 4 because it becomes a fever dream. It becomes this weird amalgamation of how the characters just go into their psychotic. It's like on episode 3, there were the writers, there were a set of writers just making it everything cool, like, you know, generic mass appeal. And on episode 4, you know that sketch of Key and Peele when who is it? Jordan Peele comes into the meeting of Gremlins 2 and he's all flamboyant and just give me your batshit ideas of Gremlins, woman Gremlin and crazy ass bad Gremlin, and just decides to like, hey, let's make this into the most outlandish of things. It just kind of becomes that because the personalities of the characters kind of make this weird switch where the shy girl becomes this psychotic and bipolar toxic ass girl. Protakun is like self-aware but also wants to like if you watch it you'll know what I mean. He's like a masochist, and then the teacher, like, you have to watch it. It's like watching a fucking train wreck. And I'm reading through the comments and no one is saying that this thing is good. No one. Everyone says, like, you read through the comments and the main comments is, this thing is cringe but I can't stop watching, or I'm lonely. You have no idea how many fucking comments there are on the Crunchyroll comment section of every episode. Like, there's at least 35 comments within the first page that says, oh, I'm lonely. I am just realizing how lonely I am. Like, for some reason, this thing attracts, like, lonely people. But yes, and you still have, like, a bunch of comments that says, this thing is not good, but I cannot stop watching. And after episode 5, which is the turning point for me, because it literally made this anime, like, it turned it into a fever dream because of the complete, not 180, but just like they decided to pump the speed. They decided to go turbo nitro on, like, dialing up the personalities of these characters to where it's not generic. It's just like, what the fuck? And the most impressive thing, and the one reason why I decided to keep on watching, and why I think this thing is so, I don't even know at this point, is because of this. Let me show you. This is episode 6, right? Every time you start an episode, every time you're greeted by this. What in the loving God's earth is Universal doing here? Universal, company that literally changed my life, because the first movie that completely like modified who I am was Jurassic Park, which is a Universal production. Then we go into the theme parks with Universal. Like, I'm a fucking Universal like dick rider, and I am not ashamed to say it. Like, by all means. So you can realize how shocked I was whenever I saw that Universal was behind an anime. I was like, does this mean that we're gonna get like more, like a way bigger production houses, just you know, trying to get into the game of anime and everything, and then to see that the first Universal anime that I see is this generic ass thing on episode 1, 2, and 3, and I'm like, come on, man, this is not the way you do it. And then I go into episode 4 and 5, I'm like, fuck, what is this? So I'm not saying that you should watch this. I'm really not saying that you should watch it. But I'm not saying that you shouldn't not watch it. Just beware of this thing, because it's not the most outlandish thing you'll ever see, but it's very odd in its own. It stands out for how cringy and weird it is. But like I said, it's more like a fever dream, and the fact that Universal is behind it just makes it like way more odd. That's it. Bye.